I always like to say that Michael got to play with me for a year at North Carolina. I think it really helped him.
Spectacular player from the beginning.
You can see right away Jordan was going to be a big-time scorer.
And showed what an impact he was going to have on the league.
This is NB88, celebrating the 30-year anniversary of Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls and the 1988 NBA season. Now here are your hosts, Adam Ryan and Aaron Steen.
Welcome to another episode of NB88, episode 3 in the series. Aaron, welcome to you today, mate. How are you?
Good, mate. It's a pleasure for you to have me back.
As always, of course. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back.
In 1995, His Airness said, "I'm back." Me too. NBA News, Notes and Quotes, November 7th through 20th, 1987.
Quoting the legendary Bob Ryan here, mate, in reference to Larry Bird, his purpose on this planet is clear. He executes the athletic fantasies of mankind. End quote. That's just fantastic stuff. On this date, Larry added to his legend with another classic performance, this time a 47-point, 8-rebound, 7-assist, and 2-steal masterclass at Washington. That in itself is an amazing stat line, and coupled with that, a game-saving bucket to end regulation that forced OT. The Bullets' Darryl Walker was anything but pedestrian, extending the game into a second overtime period before Bird rose to the occasion with the game's final play.
Moses heads for the hoop. Throws it up. He's got it.
Time out.
Oh, that puts them out in front by 1. And now Boston has 2 seconds in which to get a shot off.
And we know where the ball's going right now, right?
I got a feeling. Yeah. Now I have a feeling that ball's going to go to number 33. It's going to go to Bird. He's got a shot. Get it! And it's got it. It's a 3-point field goal. And that's it. It's all over. Can you believe that? Can you believe it? He hit a 3-pointer with no time on the clock, and they win the ball game. They only give him 2.
The LA Times' next day recap described it perfectly. Bird soars to old heights as Celtics beat Bullets in 2 overtimes. Boston 140, Washington 139. Also on the 7th, Philadelphia at Chicago in the season opener in front of 18,688 fans at Chicago Stadium saw the Bulls have a 104-94 victory over the visiting 76ers of Philadelphia. The Bulls were, of course, 1-0 on the season. For Chicago, Jordan had a fantastic game. 36 points, 6 steals and 4 blocks. Brad Sellers, 14 points. Charles Oakley, 12 points and 21 rebounds. Scott Pippen, 10 points in 23 minutes. And Horace Grant, 3 points in 13 minutes. For Philadelphia, Barkley had 34 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists and 4 steals. Monster game there from Charles. David Wingate had 17 points. And Maurice Cheeks, recently inducted Hall of Fame great, had 14 points.
Overdue, recently inducted Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, mate.
Now, I watched this game in the past couple of weeks on YouTube, and a few things stood out to me. Firstly, the Bulls, as they did back in the day, they introduced the entire lineup of the team, which was cool to see, which I never knew actually existed until we started covering the 84-85 season and saw that they did the same thing on opening night. Secondly, the ovation for Artis Gilmore during the starting lineups was comparable to that of Jordan's. Artis's return to Chicago, I reckon, would have been something similar to Scottie Pippen's return to the Bulls in 2003. Such was the impact that Artis had on the city of Chicago in his first 6 seasons with the team.
A lot of love there for Gilmore.
Yeah, and I didn't really know a whole lot about Artis's career with Chicago, as in I hadn't seen any games, that's for sure. And just watching this game and seeing him in his number 53 jersey was actually really, really cool, I thought.
It was, mate.
And thirdly was Jordan's propensity to take the ball to the hoop, which was evidenced by his 3 massive rim-rocking dunks in the first quarter. Included in these was the flying facial that he put on David Wingate to finish a fast break, which is one of my personal all-time favourite Jordan dunks.
Nasty stuff.
Haven't seen MJ in his first few seasons One thing that I loved about his dunking when he was younger was that he really loved to make use of the breakaway hoop. And his first 3 dunks in this quarter, which was just a spectacular start to the game. So if you get the opportunity, bring it up on YouTube and watch the game.
And even though he had some fantastic dunks in dunk comps, obviously, he did some incredible in-game jams that were rivaling that and then some. Check out the NB88 hashtag across social media. You'll see some highlights from throughout this season, and I'll definitely package together those 3 jams.
Now on the game, Bob Sakamoto wrote, "This was a night of promise. The Bulls lived up to the promise and also promised more in front of a record opening night crowd at the Chicago Stadium. It was smooth sailing until 7 minutes to go when, in the words of Jordan, the Bulls got too protective of our lead. Chicago led by 23 midway through the third before it was whittled down to 8 with 6:31 to go. The now Charles Barkley, not Barkley from Sesame Street.
Sesame Street, what a throwback that is. What a great character he was.
The Barkley-led comeback was halted by a Pippen putback dunk and a Jordan basket. The Bulls stopped the Sixers and Roy Hinton defensively inside and forced Mo Cheeks and David Wingate into 13 for 37 shooting from the field.
I'm sure you were meant to add great friend of the show, Roy Hinton.
Absolutely. It was a test and you passed, Adam. Well done. Rookies Pippen and Grant were very active at both ends, and Doug Collins called Charles Oakley a man. When a guy gets you 21 boards, he said he's okay with Oak floating outside for a couple of jump shots. The Bulls combated the Sixers' small lineup comeback with Sellers, Oakley, Pippen, Jordan and Paxson, their own small ball lineup. Regarding the lofty expectations being placed on the Bulls this season, Collins said he likes the expectations, though the team isn't ready to challenge Atlanta and Detroit in the Central. In his first NBA game, Scott Pippen said he had jitters and trouble handling the ball in the first half before he made a concerted effort to settle in the second in front of a crowd 6 times bigger than any he had encountered before. Horace said the fans didn't see the real Horace Grant tonight, so maybe, I don't know.
Harvey
suited up? I don't know. I know I can do more.
Good stuff, mate.
Moving on to the 9th of November, a half-hour show devoted to Bulls highlights is due to start on Sports Vision on November 14.
Oh, wow. Can I just quickly add, I've not seen 1 minute of highlights from this aforementioned show that I'm aware of, because I'd assume Jim Durham or Johnny Reid Kerr or both have probably got something to do with that. That would be fantastic to see. It's a wonder some part of that show wouldn't have made its way onto YouTube by now, but one can always hope, I guess, mate.
Also on the 9th, Bob Sakamoto noticed 2 improvements in Jordan's game, more passing and a finger roll. MJ also added he wants more rounded stats this season, not 37 points per game. Just an update that MJ's scoring average would plummet to 35 points per game for this season, which was disgraceful. Doug Collins was also happy with friend of the show Sadal Threet's play at the point after John Paxson hit foul trouble, and Grant and Pippen showed they can run, jump and play above the rim, and Pippen showed some of Jordan's ability to change the course of a game with the tip dunk to help seal the game for the Bulls. Again, if you get a chance, hop onto YouTube and check out this game. Collins earlier complained that the stadium scoreboard only keeps tallies of points, so New Balance came to the party and added a rebounding board that unfortunately only goes up to 20, and Charles Oakley had 21 in the season opener.
That's great. I didn't know about that. I wonder when the advent of hustle boards actually would appear. I remember definitely in the early 90s, I watched some Portland Trailblazers games, and they would refer to hustle stats quite often throughout the games on their telecast.
On to November 10, it was reported that the Chicago Stadium brass have told the Bulls not to announce crowds over 19,999 after stadium owner Rocky Wirtz got into trouble in 1981 from fire marshals about overflow crowds. Further violations could result in a 30-day suspension from standing room crowds.
Wow.
Not one crowd has come close to the number since, and only one game from the Jordan era ranks in the top 25, which was 19,052 for the Bulls game against the Los Angeles Lakers in February of 1985. Hashtag NB85.
Fantastic stuff. I'll get to a bit more information about sellouts in terms of Chicago Stadium later in this episode. I'm sure people can't wait to hear that.
Oh, as Johnny Most once said, with bated breath. Also on the 10th, Bob Sakamoto previewed the much-anticipated matchup between Dominic Wilkins and Michael Jordan. Atlanta could possibly be without Doc Rivers, Mike McGee, and Anthony Jerome Webb due to injury. Rivers had several teeth knocked out by a Bernard King elbow in the season opener and also sprained an ankle in the game. A tough day for Doc.
Wow.
Neek dropped 57 on the Bulls last December in what he called probably the best feeling he's ever had in a game. Jordan had 41 in the contest, and Neek added the pair took it to another level.
Highlight fest and then some.
It was also reported that the Bulls had cut rookie forward Ricky Winslow and signed free agent centre Granville Waiters, as GM Jerry Krause wanted 3 pivot men, not 3 small forwards. And a point guard is also expected to be added to the roster soon.
Later that day, Chicago at Atlanta, in front of 16,451. Good crowd there. Saw the Bulls have a 105-95 win and improved to 2-0 on the young season. For Chicago, Jordan had 29 points, 6 rebounds and 7 assists. Brad Sellers, 16 points and 9 boards. Charles Oakley, 15 points and 15 rebounds. And Scott Pippen, 11 points and 8 rebounds. When will that get old? For Atlanta, Wilkins had 35 points, that is. Spud Webb had 14 points and 10 assists. And future Chicago Bull, the great Cliff Levingston, 10 points, 7 boards and 3 blocks.
The Bulls secured their first win at the Omni since April 6, 1985 by holding off a late 22-9 Hawks run. Michael Jordan proclaimed on the bus on the way to the game that Chicago was going to win and had a little extra pressure from the Atlanta media, who earlier reported Jordan's words that the Bulls weren't scared of the Hawks. The Bulls led 64-45 at the half and 88-71 after 3 on the back of a good defensive effort. Jordan said 2 days prior that he had a surprise for the Hawks, which turned out to be Jordan's want to concentrate on getting his teammates more involved. I was actually hoping that MJ was going to trot out for the warm-ups Rodman style with nothing on underneath his warm-ups or something, but yeah, no, that was it.
On the 11th of November, Chicago at New Jersey in front of 11,552 saw the Bulls win their 3rd straight game to open the season, 105-96. And for Chicago, Jordan had 31 points, Oakley 15 points, 12 boards. Brad Sellers, friend of the show, Sadal Threet, John Paxson, and Dave Corzine all had 10-plus points, and Scott Pippen had 8 points. For New Jersey, Ben Coleman, 14 points and 12 rebounds, so a great effort from him. Dallas Comegys had 14 points. Dennis Hobson, great friend of the show, 13 points, 5 rebounds and 5 assists. And another great friend of the show, Chris Engler, 2 points. Former Chicago Bull, too, I should add. Chris Engler.
Creeping along the edge of disappointment, the Bulls nonetheless emerged Wednesday night as unmarked as a young Muhammad Ali, wrote Bob Sakamoto. The Bulls lacked a killer instinct against the injury-riddled Nets and, in boxing terms, dragged New Jersey the distance, added Bob. Collins expected an adrenaline letdown after the emotional win in Atlanta, and the Bulls delivered him a flat-footed performance through 3 quarters before Jordan's 4th quarter burst. Hampered by a sore groin, MJ sat at almost half of the 3rd term before 15 points in the 4th on his way to 31, but was again assisted ably with an additional 5 Bulls in double figures. Oakley also ably assisted the Nets with 7 turnovers, giving him 20 in the first 3 games of the season, this after his atrocious turnover season in 86-87. Not a great start, despite the fact that Charles Linwood Williams grabbed only 3 rebounds before fouling out late. The Nets out-rebounded the Bulls 39-37.
I'd reckon you'd probably take Oak's turnovers for all the massive rebounds that he drags down pretty much game in, game out. But, of course, you want to try and curb those somewhat.
Yeah, I'm sure that Doug Collins and the Bulls front office they thought the same way at the end of the season too, when he got traded.
They gave him the lemon and sauce.
I'd love to know if his atrocious turnover numbers were a contributing factor to him being traded, although he did improve them a lot.
He did. At this point, it's probably appropriate for us to say hello to Charles Oakley if you're listening. He won't be listening anymore.
I'm sorry, Oak. Thank God I live in Australia. I'm too far away to cop a belting from him.
I was going to say, lucky he doesn't know where you live, because don't answer your door.
The Bulls now come home for 3 straight at Chicago Stadium and a chance to get off to their best start in years. It was reported on the 13th of November that the Bulls had sent a 1988 second-round pick to the New York Knicks for 29-year-old point guard Rory Sparrow. The Knicks would use the aforementioned second-round pick on Greg Butler, who would play 55 career games in the NBA. Sparrow said he was happy about getting to see Jordan play on a night-to-night basis without having to pay. The Bulls also had considered future Bull Craig Hodges and Washington's Frankie Airball Johnson before settling on Sparrow. They waived rookie Tony White to make room for the veterans.
Later that day, New Jersey, in the back-to-back matchup against Chicago, this time at Chicago Stadium, in front of 17,607, saw the Bulls head to 4-0 with a 103-85 victory. For Chicago, Jordan had another ripper, 36 points, 7 boards, 5 assists and 6 steals. Pippen had 15 points, Horace Grant 12 points and 9 boards, and Dave Corzine 9 points and 10 rebounds. For New Jersey, the G-man Mike Jaminski had 23 points and 12 rebounds, Buck Williams 15 points and 11 rebounds, and Adrian Branch, future NBA champion, spoiler alert, had 12 points, and of course he came over to Australia and was a good contributor to Australia's National Basketball League some years hence.
Imagine if Rory Sparrow jumped on Adrian Branch. It'd be Sparrow on Branch. Meet Bob Ryan and catch some great Celtics action between these covers.
Boston Globe sports writer Bob Ryan will be at the Boston University Bookstore Mall, second level, Thursday, November 19, noon to 2 p.m, signing his new book, 48 Minutes. A play-by-play account of the January 16, 1987 Boston Celtics Cleveland Cavaliers game. Ryan microscopically examines the plays and players, the substitutions and strategies, the manoeuvres and the manipulations that are a part of the drama that is the NBA. Bob Ryan and Terry Pluto's 48 Minutes, a night in the life of the NBA. There's something more to New England's largest bookstore. 660 Beacon Street, Kenmore Square, Boston, 02215. Note, this is not an actual sponsorship, it's purely for fun. Real sponsors welcomed.
On this night, the Bulls' second unit were second to none, wrote Bob Sakamoto. Corzine, Grant, Pippen, friend of the show Threet, and Rory Sparrow kicked off the second and fourth terms with 8-0 and 6-0 runs respectively. The Bulls harassed New Jersey into 29 turnovers, had 18 steals as a team, and Chicago's bench outscored the Nets 50-22. The reserves also restored a 13-point lead early in the fourth before 15 Jordan points in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Extended the lead to 18. Productive nights for Pippen and Grant covered subpar nights for Sellers and Oakley. Also on this day, it was reported former Bull Ricky Winslow...
Former Bull, he's been out of the team for 2 days. That's your time greatest. He's a former Bull 2 days ago.
Ricky Winslow landed on his feet as opposed to Sparrow landing on the branch. Landed on his feet after being waived by the team. He signed a 3-year deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. How's that for a turn in fortune?
Well done to Ricky. On the 14th of November, this was a great game. Indiana at Chicago in front of 18,676 in a thrilling finish. The Pacers stole victory from the jaws of defeat with a 111-110 victory. The Bulls dropped to 4-1. For Chicago, Jordan had 37 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists and 4 steals. Charles Oakley had a great game, 26 points and 19 rebounds, and Scott Pippen had 11 points. For Indiana, Chuck Person and Reggie Miller had 20 points each. Wayman Tisdale, rest in peace, 17 points and 8 assists, and Vern Fleming, 1984 gold medalist, had 14 points and 13 assists. Down by 7 points after 3 quarters, Chicago wrestled back control of the game and led by 5 with 55 seconds to play. Later, Horace Grant was fouled after grabbing a defensive rebound. The Pacers were in the penalty and just 15 seconds remained. Grant went to the free throw line for 2 shots. The Bulls were eyeing off a 5-0 start to the young season.
11 seconds to play in the game. Indiana trails by 4. Give it to Reggie. Reggie, three-pointer on the way. Looks good. Yes! 1-point game. 4 seconds to play. They get it in. They throw it away. Indiana's got a chance. And no time has expired. 110, 109. Can you believe it? Hit a shot. Hit a shot. Hit a shot. Indiana with 2 seconds hits the shot. He hit it. Unreal, and Chicago will get it back. Oh, where the ball is. Watch the reverse. Clock does not start until it touches somebody. On the way. Now we Pacers win. We win it. Pacers win.
Post-game, Dave Corzine said, quote, I was planning on going out a lot the next 2 days. Now I'll have to hide, end quote. Addressing the media post-game in the basement of Chicago Stadium, Coach Collins said, quote, I don't want to think about basketball for the next few days. I'm sorry if I'm not being my usual self, but I'm really disappointed. This was self-destruction at its finest, end quote.
The big three-pointer by rookie Reggie Miller at the end of the game really typified the three-point shooting fest that this game was. Back in 87-88, combined, the teams went 1 for 2 from three-point land. That's amazing.
This series going to bring in a segment called And Another Thing, compiled by Bob Ryan and Ed Giliotti. Bob has given his blessing to use his columns in the Boston Globe, which is very nice of him, our future podcast guest, the great Bob Ryan. So thanks, Bob, for that. In this segment, mate, it's basically a league-wide recap of some interesting things that have happened across the association. Now, this appeared on the 15th of November.
And Another Thing, compiled by the Boston Globe's Bob Ryan and Ed Giliotti.
Here are some things we know about the NBA after 1 week of play. The Bulls are going to be tough. Sacramento, under Bill Russell, is not going to stand around. The Kings hit 134 points twice already. The Knicks might inspire a city of Rip Van Winkles. Moses Malone is in shape. Reggie Miller is the most audacious rookie to enter the league since John Drew, the man who actually launched one from 5 feet beyond the three-point arc. And Larry Bird will be outdone by none this season. Dennis Rodman will become increasingly important to the Pistons as the season progresses. Chuck Daly will use him at big guard, as well as both small and big forward. Quote, in many ways, he's our best rebounder, end quote. He won't get any argument from ever-objective Bird. Quote, he's as good an offensive rebounding forward as there is in the league, end quote.
It's cool to hear him say that because if you look at Dennis when he was younger, like in the 87-88 season, very wiry and obviously as good a positional defender and also could defend guards out on the perimeter, which he could do up to a decade later.
Finally, mate, in a section called Miscellany. How do you normally say it? Is it miscellany or miscellany? Actually, miscellany was my second grade teacher now I think about it. But
I don't think I've ever seen that word before.
Yeah, miscellany.
I said miscellaneous. I'm assuming it'd be miscellany.
In the miscellany, the New York media has taken to renaming members of the Knicks who have lost 10 straight over 2 seasons. Thus far, they've come down hard on Kenny Sleep Walker, Pat Short Cummings, and Medical Bill Cartwright.
There we go.
Bit of Peter Vesey at work there, I'm sure, the great man and great friend of the show. Golden State Sleepy Floyd accounted for 61 points in the Warriors' 130-115 win over Phoenix. He had 37 points, 20 of which were in the third quarter, and had 12 assists. And Houston's Will Be Free had 37 points, 19 in the fourth quarter, while hitting 15 of 21 shots in a 116-114 win over Sacramento. In that game, Sacramento's Jawann Oldham, former Chicago Bull, had 16 points and a career-high 13 rebounds and 7 block shots.
Wow.
So a great game there from Jawann. Moving on to the 17th of November. Washington at Chicago in front of 17,081 fans saw the Bulls have a 105-101 win. They improved to 5-1 on the season. Chicago were led by Jordan's 26 points and 7 assists. Oakley had 8 points, but 21 rebounds and 7 assists. And Gilmore, the artist formerly known as a 6-year Bulls veteran, had 13 points. For Washington, Jeff Malone had 26 points, Bernard King 23 points and 4 boards, and Moses Malone 22 points and 9 rebounds.
It's an unconfirmed report that Bernard actually had 3 or 4 of Doc Rivers' teeth still embedded into his elbow during this game.
Now, this Bulls victory marked the 500th win in franchise history. Quite a cool little stat.
Yeah.
The Open to Bob Sakamoto's game recap said it best, quote, anyone with a heart condition had better stay away from the stadium for a while, end quote. It was the third time in 6 games Chicago had a lead of 20 or more points, only to struggle at the finish. Now in this one, the Bulls were up 64-38 late in the first half.
Wow.
11 of Jordan's 26 points came in the last quarter. And it was mentioned in that same day's Chicago Tribune, in the odds and ends, November 18, that recently released Bull, Gene Banks, may one day return to his hometown of Philadelphia and run for mayor. Adding weight to those comments, it was noted Banks was an on and off the court standout at Duke, where he received a bachelor's degree in history and was chosen to address his class at commencement.
Wow.
And at Boston, the Bird-less Celtics, tendinitis in both Achilles tendons, if you can believe that, down by 28 points, stormed back to beat the New York Knicks in 2 overtimes, 111-109, in large part thanks to Bird's last-minute substitute, Darren Daye, who tipped in a rebound at the buzzer to end the second overtime.
Poor Knicks, up by 28, and they still cough it up.
No wonder those nicknames were flowing freely. On the night of the 18th, Chicago at Washington in a back-to-back in front of 13,721 saw Chicago hold on again 84-82 and improve to 6-1. What a great start to the season. For Chicago, Jordan had 30 points and 8 assists, Charles Oakley 19 points and 24 rebounds, John Paxson 12 points and Artis Gilmore 7 points and 9 boards. For Washington, Hot Plate Williams dished up 17 points and 14 rebounds, Bernard King, 16 points, Jeff Malone had 12 points, and Moses Malone, 11 points and 12 rebounds. Now, in what was, to that point, the lowest scoring game in the young NBA season, Chicago hung on to claim its 6th win in 7 attempts. Jordan had 8 points in the final 2.5 minutes. Former coach of the Bulls in MJ's rookie season, Kevin Lockery, offered this succinct summation of the game. Quote, Jordan basically took over the game, end quote. This after Michael was held to just 2 points in the opening quarter. Now, with just over 3 minutes left in the game, Washington led 75-72.
My mind's blown at the detail in Kevin Lockery's breakdown of Jordan's last quarter there.
He wasn't going to go into too much depth there, knowing full well what Jordan can do. The Southern Illinoisan printed that though MJ is still the Bulls' primary weapon, the 6-1 start, quote, has been helped along by the likes of lesser knowns, Charles Oakley, Artis Gilmore, John Paxson, rookies Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant, end quote. How lesser known? Well, Pippen's name was actually spelt incorrectly. Scottie with a Y. Now on the 20th of November, Atlanta at Chicago in front of 18,423. The Bulls held on again in another nail-biter, 94-92, and moved to 7-1. Jordan had 33 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals and 4 blocks. That's just ridiculous. Oakley had 13 points and 17 boards, and Dave Corzine 10 points and 7 rebounds. For Atlanta, Dominique had a great game, 36 points, 4 rebounds and 5 assists. Doc Rivers had 15 points and 9 assists. Kevin Willis, 13 points and 11 boards, and John Koncak, 12 points and 15 rebounds. I should note here, mate, this was the beginning of the Bulls' home sellout streak.
Wow. There you go. That's cool, because that was a long, long streak.
This is apparently the game where it all began.
Any of you out there that are interested at all in the Air Jordan sneaker line, Jordan started this season in the Air Jordan 3 and actually transferred back to the Air Jordan 2 for some games, showing that the other 3 wasn't quite up to game use scratch, I guess you could say. That's a little tidbit that I found interesting, because I always thought that he debuted the 3 at All-Star Weekend when he wore the other black ones at the All-Star game in Chicago. But he actually debuted them in the first game, and then in the second game he went back to the 2, which showed that the 3 wasn't quite up to his standards.
Yeah, okay, that's a great little tidbit, mate. Did not know that at all. I've never been a massive shoe man. I love the early Air Jordan shoes, but never paid that much attention to them. So, great to hear that sort of stuff. The Bulls' record was 7-1 at this point. It was the best start in team history. And for that moment, Chicago were atop the Eastern Conference and league-wide second to just one team, Western Conference juggernaut, the LA Lakers. Now, Jordan's 2 free throws with 28 seconds left proved the difference. The Bulls' Oakley missed 2 of his own with 8 seconds left before the Hawks' John Battle misfired on a 15-footer, and Kevin Willis also missed a shot from similar distance off the long rebound. Bob Sakamoto's game recap warmed my heart when I read that, quote, the biggest basket of the night belonged to Dave Corzine. The game was even at 90 when the Bulls tried desperately to get the ball to Jordan, end quote. A Paxson audible changed the game's fate. Quote, Corzine got the ball on the low right post with 8 seconds to shoot, end quote. Said Corzine, and this was good, quote, I knew there wasn't any time to pass the ball around. John threw me the ball and cleared out. I have confidence when I get the ball in a low post, and I hit the fadeaway. End quote. A damning statistic for Atlanta. They were only 22 of 37 from the free throw line in a 2-point loss.
It's also an unconfirmed report that in the timeout towards the end of the game that Dave actually told everyone to give the ball to him and get the hell out of the way.
Taking a page out of the yet-to-be-said Doug Collins press conference from '89. In this early season, wins 5, 6 and 7 for the Bulls were by a total of 8 points. Now, contrast this with the team's last 3 losses of the 87 regular season, which we covered beautifully, I must add, in NB87. 2 points in an overtime loss, 3-3.
And a part of our breakdown of the amount of close losses that the Bulls had in that 86-87 season is that one of the moves for them to become one of the good teams of the NBA was to transfer some of those losses into the wins column, and that's what they've started to do already with this 7-1 start, Adam. So we couldn't be much better at this than what we are.
And there's no editing whatsoever.
None.
So from go to woe, line by line, mate, we do it very well.
Line by line.
Our lone player of the week, because it was only early season, November 15, Larry Bird of Boston, averaging 33.4 points, 12.2 rebounds, 8 assists and 2 steals per game, as Boston went 5-0. Hard to argue with that. Now, our individual highs, 4 points. Larry dropped 47 in the season opener at Washington on the 7th of November, as we talked about to open the episode. Rebounds, 25 from Big Mark, the great Mark Eaton, great friend of the show. Hello, Mark, if you're listening. Dominating against Denver on the 17th of November. And the assist man was Dennis Johnson and Terry Porter of Boston and Portland, respectively, on the 7th and 14th of November against the Bullets and Mavericks. Both gentlemen had 17 assists. Now, the NBA standings through November the 20th, our division leaders were in the Atlantic. Boston was 7-2. In the Central, Chicago were leading at 7-1, which is fantastic to see. In the Midwest, Houston was 6-2, and in the Pacific, the only team that was undefeated in the league were the LA Lakers at 8-0. The league cellar dwellers early were the Golden State Warriors, who were 1-8. All right, mate, that wraps up episode 3 of the series. Thanks again for being a part of the show. Anything you'd like to add before we do put a bow on this episode?
No.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show and share my web address with your friends and colleagues, inallairness.com. Check out the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with high-profile guests. Follow me on Twitter at inallairness. Please add your like to the show's social hub, facebook.com/inallairness. Join me next time for another edition of the show. Thank you. That's good. That was good. For New Jersey? That's not New Jersey. OCD. For Indiana, Chuck
You'd
Person.
reckon that your OCD would have gotten it right in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. It's the ironic part of OCD is that I didn't correct it. David Robertson. His name's not even on this list. Where did I get that from? That is bizarre.